teachers ever did. Have you ever accidentally said something to the class that you instantly regretted? I worked as a teacher at a school for kids with special needs. One day a girl would not stop saying money shot, money shot, money shot, and then chuckling. A few of the boys knew what she was referring to and chuckled as well. I asked her to stop saying money shot. She looked up at me and stopped laughing and in all earnestness asked, "What does money shot mean?" I froze, not knowing what to say. Being a male staff, there was no way I could explain the dirty meaning of money shot to a 17-year-old student with special needs. So I opened my big dumb mouth and just said, "Google it." Within about 3 seconds I realized what I had just said and loudly yelled, "No. No, don't Google it." When my youngest brother was little, this was his way of demanding the meaning of words. What does that mean? You don't need to know. I'll tell you when you're older. If you don't tell me now, I'm going to go Google it. I once said, "Are you f***ing kidding me?" in earshot of my 6th graders after I watched the class bully go up to bat and strike out. Prior to this I had overheard him telling some other boys behind the backstop how much of a PSSY they are and to watch me knock it out of the park. Class bully swung like a wimp and the nerdy non-athletic kids ended up having a field day with him. The students turned and stared at me after I said it. And they asked me, "Did I just hear you say FCK?" I turned to the students and said, "No. But I just heard you say it." We continued on with our game and had a great day. When I taught 4th grade, I had a hearing impaired little boy who wore special hearing aids that picked up my voice from a microphone I wore around my neck while teaching. I was pretty good about turning it off when I was not delivering a lesson. But sometimes I forgot. One day I was so frustrated with my class, and I went into the hallway to cool off. I vented quietly while banging my head against the wall. These stupid f***ing kids. I want to knock their stupid f***ing heads together. Of course I didn't mean it. Took a deep breath and went back in. The little boy was smiling a shit-eating grin and winked at me. He never told anyone. He was so cool. That's the coolest thing ever. I was talking about genres of literature to my 3rd graders and I said something along the lines of, "Fantasy is something made up or that couldn't happen. Like Santa Claus." I heard a gasp from a student and another student said, "Nah. I was that guy. The guy who took away the mystery." A student once came into my math class to promote a donkey basketball game the teachers were going to participate in. He said, "I don't know about you, but I really want to see MRC, referring to the teacher of the class we were in. "Get up on that ass and ride it." MRC instantly responded, "You sound like my wife." After my peers burst into hysterical laughter. He explained, absolutely mortified, he meant the student's comment reminded him of his wife saying that she wanted to see an ass riding an ass. You can pick your seats. I trust you guys. I'm a high school English teacher. My first year teaching. My freshmen were learning plot elements. As the kids were quietly jotting down notes for defining the word climax, one completely naive boy raised his hand and asked, "Is it possible to have more than one climax?" It took everything I had to keep it together. Only if the author is female. Preface. The word for penis in Japanese is chinchin. I was a teacher in Japan at the time. In a 6th grade class, we were playing a game and I was naming different body parts for them to touch. Touch your knee. Touch your eyebrow. Touch your elbow. I was having trouble thinking of the next part for them to touch. And blurted out, "Touch your chin." Without thinking. Cue 26th grade boys laughing and grabbing their crotches. Now I'm gonna go to Japan and run around saying "not by the hairs of my chinny chin chin." In high school there was a student named Porky. Everyone at the school knew he was a stoner. One day our science teacher got pissed because everyone failed the test. Except for Porky. She yelled, "Maybe you should all start smoking pot." Because Porky here is the only one who passed the test. Bringing a new meaning to puff. Puff. Pass. I used to work at a preschool as a toddler teacher. We had these annoying strings hanging from the ceiling with clothespins on them, so that we could clip up artwork or decorations. One of them was right at eye level, and after walking right into it several times and uttering obscenities under my breath, I decided to take it down. One boy, a very observant little boy as it turns out, asked me, "Where damn it go?" It took me a week to convince him that clothespins are not called damnits. Points for not having to do with accidentally drawing a penis. But seriously, toddlers are so freaking funny about stuff like this. I remember something my teacher once said to the class that made everyone cringe. We were in secondary school and working on some maths problems as the teacher went around the room helping. A boy in my class, Chris, had a really bad lisp and in an attempt to get the teacher's attention shouted "there" as in so quick as a flash the teacher replied "yes." Everyone burst out laughing and the teacher was obviously horrified at what he had said. He was a new teacher and obviously was so used to joking around with his mates that he just forgot where he was for a second. About 6 years ago, I am teaching 7th grade writing. I had just gotten a new student who could be best described as strange. My lesson is coming to an end and I am getting ready to give the assignment. The strange new kid raises his hand about the same time as another student. He then begins to whistle at me while raising his hand. I turn to him and explode. I ask, "Do you think I am a f***ing dog?" The class erupts in laughter. I never lived that one down. All the classes heard about it. TLDR, I dropped the F-bomb on a new kid. I was teaching Beowulf to a bunch of seniors and somehow or another had to describe and sketch out a few of the weapons on the board. When I got to the double-headed battle axe, I took one look at my sketch and erased it immediately. Too late, I had already drawn a penis on the board in front of 20+ boys. Pandemonium ensued. Now class, I'm not an artist. Teachers should all know never to draw things on the board. Inevitably, I assumed seniors as being retirees and it just made it funnier. I work at a juvenile correctional facility as a teacher. One day my students were really grouchy and uncooperative, so I got flustered and said, "Boy, are you guys crabby today?" Quicker than I could understand what was happening, 5 of the biggest, burly, known gang-affiliated youth shot up out of their chairs with literal fire in their eyes and said, "What the FCK did you just say?" Turns out the Bloods gang members will sometimes call the Crips gang members crabs to insult them. Thankfully they quickly realized I did not mean it with malice, being a pasty middle-aged white guy, and sat down before it got ugly. TLDR. Accidentally insulted the Crips gang while teaching at a JUV. The Bloods gang members will sometimes call the Crips gang members crabs to insult them. That sounds like something out of West Side Story. It's such a dad joke. Edit. Hey guys, did you know there is a subreddit called Dad Jokes? I do. During student teaching I split the class up into groups to learn about how different social groups, women, African Americans, Native Americans, Mexican Americans, farmers, etc., were impacted by the New Deal. Once they were in their groups I sent them to different areas of the classroom to research. When I dropped this line, "Where are my African Americans at?" African Americans to the back of the classroom. There were 2 black kids in class. My teacher told me if we wouldn't stop talking she would stop teaching. She regretted that. Edit. Guys, she really did die. Well damn, thanks for the karma MRS. J. You were the best. So after she retired from teaching, what did she go on to do? Spelling out the word while giving a spelling test. Sadly, it's happened more than once. The kids love it though. My history teacher, when we were learning about samurai, called seppuku bukkake. Although to be fair, both are rather messy. I accidentally choked on my saliva during a lesson and I blurted out, "Kids, I have one lesson for you. Always swallow." The entire 12th grade class burst into laughter and never let me forget it. 7th grade. My first year teaching. Kid did not want to read his next line of dialogue in A Christmas Carol. I thought he was just nervous about reading to the class, so I say, very reassuringly with a smile, I know it's hard. And then he said his next line. Very attached to me was dick. Whole class busts up laughing. Whoever put that in the textbook was definitely trolling middle school teachers. I'm a middle school art teacher. I had my 8th grade students make paper mache initials, decorating them to match their personality. Anyway, we were putting them away one day when one of the kids goes, "Ems, Miss Kitten, where do you want the D?" And I said, "Oh, wherever it will fit." The class died laughing and it took me about 2 seconds to realize what I'd said. Oops. I was teaching English at a kindergarten, Hakwon, in South Korea. It was my first teaching gig and I didn't really know what I was doing. The kids were very young and were getting bored with my lesson. They were leaving their chairs and started singing songs. Kiddie chaos, etc. In a moment of dumb frustration I smacked my forehead and said, OFCK. All of the kids heard what I said clearly and at the same time they all dropped what they were doing and mimicked me. 15 kids were running around the class and smacking their foreheads while saying OFCK really loudly. They saw that I freaked out a little when I said, "No, no, no, no," and held my hands out in a pleading manner. So they, in turn, all said no, 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 and mimicked me again. That moment I just laughed at what was happening because they had no idea what they were saying but were having a lot more fun than learning about verbs. It was an experience I'll always remember. Yo, I sucked at teaching. First lesson with a new class. 28 first graders sitting in a circle. In a hurry from the piano to the whiteboard I jump over this boy's head. Except, I don't. I knock him out with my knee. Right to his forehead. He passed out on the floor. The discipline in that class from then on. Edit. Spelling. THNXO baby baby. How was I supposed to know? Edit number 2. Only Reddit will award you for knocking a kid senseless. I like it. Gold. Jerry. Gold. Thank you. Didn't see that coming. Did ya? Efka? My buddy is kind of an awkward guy and he teaches high school. He had just shaved his beard and, in class, a kid says, "Oh, Mr. Jones, you shaved." Knowing he usually shaves his neck. He grabs his face and says, "Oh, you mean up here?" Kids die laughing thinking he's talking about shaving his balls in front of high school kids. Edit. Many people have asked for the location of Mr. Jones. He teaches chemistry in a suburb of Chicago. There was another time where he was playing music as the kids worked in groups and the song Only the Good Die Young came on. He only knew the line "Come on, Virginia," so he turns to a girl named Virginia in his class and says, "I wrote this song for you, Virginia." The entire song is about trying to get a girl to have sex with you. The entire class, my buddy included, just sat in silence as they analyzed the lyrics. There is no way he is not the creepy teacher at his school. One day in high school, a student Amanda mentioned to the class that her father ran marathons. The students who knew her father went on to talk about how fit he was and how young he looked. This was the day after parent-teacher conferences. And upon hearing this conversation, our gay Spanish teacher chimed in with, "Yeah, he's a DILF." The class froze. Amanda started crying. And he almost got fired. I once told a fresh group of grade 9 Comp C students that they could download Python onto their home computer for free. Just go to www.python.com. Back then, that led to PRN. When I was a teacher's assistant, the school had some kind of clown in for some assembly. He proceeded to tell us a story with a moral to it. Made entertaining with actions and miming. It was about a guy who was ice fishing. Problem was that the clown was French Canadian. And with his accent when he said ice it sounded like ass. Blissfully unaware of this, he told an elementary school all about a guy going ass fishing. And all of the things he did around the asshole. Little did you know. My so was a middle school teacher for a couple years and she told me this story. She was talking about the importance of doing their homework. She was trying to think of something to say and she came up with, you can't just go home and play video games naked all day. Some kid from the back of the class shouts, "Is that what you do after school?" Cue a red face and boisterous laughter. You can't just go home and play video games naked all day. Oh yeah? Wanna come watch me do exactly that? My math teacher accidentally called this Mexican kid a beaner and then tried to play it off to the class like it was his cool nickname or something. My best friend and I just looked at each other in shock because nobody else even noticed nor knew what the word meant. UHH. His nickname's Beaner because he's like a jelly bean. You just want a UHH. Eat an you. Maybe I should start over. I'm teaching summer school in Baltimore City this summer. 2 days ago, instead of saying we'll start with the form of a thesis statement, I said let's start with the storm of a thesis statement. We did not accomplish as much as I wanted to that day. That's almost poetic. With the storm of a thesis statement. My social studies teacher heard kids calling a short chubby boy Chode and assumed it was his nickname. So instead of asking what it meant, he called him that for 3 months in class before finding out what it meant. He then apologized for about an hour straight to the kid. My English teacher once said, and I quote, "Class, it is time for some pleasure reading, so grab your copies of Huckleberry Finn and get going." He's a pretty old-fashioned teacher. But he busted out laughing at his mistake, then asked us not to tell anyone. Well, you abused his trust then, didn't you? Had a computing teacher about 6 years ago. Great guy. Bit of a dry sense of humor though. Me and him got along well. One day this girl kept asking to use his computer to check her emails because Hotmail was blocked for students. So they didn't use MSN or whatever. She kept asking and asking until he finally said, "Stop it or I'll teabag you." This happened in Scotland. And while teabagging is a well-known term in certain parts of Glasgow, and for the older generation, it's used to mean stab multiple times in the chest. He was clearly joking about the whole stabbing thing and it was all part of his sense of humor. But when we finally explained what the meaning behind it was, he was mortified. Something like that nowadays will get you fired. Was a known story throughout school as well. Last time I saw him I reminded him about it and he cringed so hard. Edit. I did inform him of the real meaning. We had a pupil in our computing class called William Cumming, reasonably common name in this part of Scotland. He used to skip class a lot and our teacher, a former religious education teacher, asked a group of 14-15-year-olds if anyone had seen William Cumming in the toilets. She genuinely didn't understand why we were laughing. Back when I used to teach in a high school in New Zealand, this kid from my social studies class goes, "Hey Emma Kempate. How old is the Queen?" Annoyed that I was disturbed on my thought process and being my first ever time teaching a bunch of kids, I accidentally blurted out, "I don't give a FCK," which caused the entire class to erupt with laughter. That became the thing they said to me for the next year of my time there. Edit. Whanui. City College for those interested. The kids always asked me how old the Queen was every lesson. I didn't particularly want to teach, I just did it to go to NZ. But I learned that it's a job for people with way more patience than I can muster. After the first term was over, I got put in a different role to change things around and became a woodwork assistant and taught my social studies class to some older kids to help them catch up with what they missed out on. It was great for me because I used to just go surf and my co-teacher of the class would cover for me. Not so much what the teacher said but what was said to her. It was in English class and the teacher, Ms. Kelly, was having people in the class read aloud and switching between people at random to make sure everyone is keeping up and paying attention. Ms. Kelly yawn. "Can you continue reading?" Full stop. Yawn starts reading the next line, "Of course I will, baby." Ms. Kelly. "Thank you." Yawn. Class laughs hysterically. Guy 1. Whining, I have this stupid cough and my throat hurts. Guy 2. Mocking Guy 1, oh. It hurts when I pee. Teacher, me. Pointing to Guy 1, that explains your sore throat. Instant regret. The history teacher in our school was telling us about the Kimberley mine, a huge mine where tons of diamonds were found in South Africa. There was this girl named Kimberly and the teacher didn't say Kimberly's mine, she would say Kimberly's hole. She went on saying how big Kimberly's hole was and that a lot of people got sick because of her hole. When she realized people were laughing their faces off, she realized, I haven't seen a face that priceless ever since. Pretty much everyone's been inside Kimberly's hole. They come inside, do their business, and leave as soon as they can. Usually they come in groups and have to be careful due to the many diseases and infections that Kimberly's hole has been observed to carry. We had a chemistry teacher in high school who didn't know what bust a nut was. She basically thought it was having fun or something, so she would say my husband was busting nuts all weekend long. We couldn't get enough. Learned a lot. Had some fun.